Morning, guys. Everything new under the sun. Well, we're looking at a test here. This is from freebeacon.com. Pentagon says Russia tested nuclear-powered cruise missile twice, and you would expect them to be doing this as every country tests their nuclear warheads, nuclear weapons, delivery systems, etc. But the buildup of the bear Russia, as it relates to Ezekiel 38, Gog Magog, suggests that this is getting closer than we think. Arctic flight tests failed to demonstrate new technology, apparently. U.S. intelligence agency monitored 2 Russian tests of an experimental nuclear-powered cruise missile in recent months and found both tests failed to demonstrate the novel use of a reactor to fuel long-range flight. So, and a lot of people have been commenting on my site that a lot of this is propaganda. They're not going to come out and really say what they have. I think a lot of propaganda is preempting. If they are on their way to supersonic weapons, if they are on their way there, the country's going to use it and use it as propaganda early to put fear and to play a card in the overall Cold War that's occurring, and that's really turning into a hot war in Syria. Significant news on that front. But 2 flight tests were conducted in the Russian Arctic, including one in November on the island of Novaya Zemlya, the location of the Russian Air Force Base and nuclear testing site. Both tests, apparently, during both tests, the nuclear power source failed to ignite, but both times it didn't light, one defense official said. The official said the tests raised concern Moscow created nuclear fallout from missile impact, either in the waters or on the Arctic land. So there's nuclear waste being basically pile-drived into the ground or into the water by these weapons, which didn't fire properly. And Norway is apparently experiencing this. Norway's Radiation Protection Authority detected small amounts of radioactive substance called ruthenium-106 in October 2016. The particles may have come from the test of nuclear-powered missiles. The isotope is not found in nature, so it's a man-made isotope. Russia denied the fallout from any of its civilian reactors. During one test, a modified Russian military transport known as IL-976 was spotted near the testing site, along with vehicles related to Rosatom, the acronym for the Russian State Nuclear Energy Corporation. So this is going on. These reports are coming out. They are working on their supersonic missiles, and U.S. intelligence is apparently all over this and recognizing that some of these missiles aren't working. And there's a video on this. U.S. video analysts' analysis of the new missile determined that it was not similar to the KH-101 long-range cruise missile and appears to be an entirely new system. Initial intelligence assessments of the missile based on the video suggest that it was powered by some type of high-temperature thruster powered by a nuclear reactor. So they're pushing for nuclear missiles, and on top of the destruction of the warhead, what does the thrust system of these weapons, what does that do to harm the environment? What does that do when it lands and basically causes a dirty bomb weapon, sort of a fallout when it explodes on enemy territory or their own sovereign territory in Russia, if you will? Well, it goes on talking about the intelligence related to it. It's interesting. So we have some Russian failures of weapons. Do they have supersonic weapons? Again, a lot of my commenters have suggested it's pure propaganda. I think what we see is a run-up to World War III. We see the countries testing as fast as they can new weapons, new technology, and all of this to be used because Zechariah 12, I believe it is, does refer to a nuclear weapon of sorts being used in the Middle East. And so we know that nuclear weapons will be used in the last days, in the end times, so much so that God has to actually prevent the use of more of them because they're basically otherwise going to wipe out all of mankind, and man's going to destroy himself with nuclear weapons. So God does come at a point in time in the last days and prevent all the nuclear weapons in the world from going off. The whole mutually assured destruction idea, the MAD idea, God's going to prevent that because otherwise the whole world would just be contaminated with nuclear fallout, and God's going to prevent that at a point in time. So it's an interesting intelligence article coming from U.S. intelligence from freebeacon.com. I'll put the link in the description. It's something to watch, something to be aware of as we see all this propaganda coming out as nation states are vying for power, especially Russia and Syria. And each one is trying to outdo the other with propaganda, suggesting that they have more muscle than the next country and trying to psych the other country out. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Who indeed does hold the upper hand for the military? I think right now the United States probably holds the upper hand, but I think they'll be taken out of the picture from an economic collapse. So you can have the strongest military in the world, but if the economy collapses and you can't pay your soldiers, well, you're not going to be able to deploy your army, your military, where you need to, when you need to. And I think an economic collapse is what takes the U.S. out of end-time Bible prophecy. And I think that's why these other countries are still in Bible prophecy, even though they don't have the best militaries, they don't have the best weapons. Some of their weapons are failing, like as in this case, a nuclear-powered missile. But they'll still be left standing because they're communist states. They rule by military. They rule by law, and there's no real freedom of the people. So they can control the masses. They can control what is said in the media. And therefore an economic collapse wouldn't affect them as significantly, and they could probably rein in and control the population after an economic collapse. I think that's really what's next on the prophetic timescale and economic collapse. And I think that's coming soon, maybe even in 2018. I see so many things lining up, pointing to that. So something to watch out for as we continue to watch and are watchmen on the wall for end-time Bible prophecy. Things are transpiring, things are occurring in the economy, in the wars of the world, the way countries are arranging themselves in the Middle East and Israel. Significant things are happening. And 2018 will be a year to remember. And I'm making that statement now. And so we'll come back at the end of the year and see if I was right. But I think 2018 is a milestone. It's a turning point in end-time Bible prophecy.